big part of the training is helping you learn how to prepare for your first assignment. And that's what we call them as assignments. And there's some things that are, just repetition based. You have to learn your cover alias, and you have to learn your alias name, and you have to memorize your biographical details of this person that you're supposed to be. And then you also have to learn how to exist within whatever cover you're being assigned, right? Who's your cover boss? What's your cover job? Who are your cover clients, right? You got to defend what we call a legend.
Yeah.
So there's a certain element that's actual preparation for that. But then there's another part of it that's all physiological preparation, because we often joke that the first day of your assignment is the last day you're healthy, because they're so draining that from the day that you land on site for your assignment, you're just degrading. You're sleeping less every day. You're eating worse every day, if you're eating at all. You're getting sicker because the world is a nasty place. Like, there's germs and bugs and unhealthy food, and things are unsanitary and whatever else, right? So you're degrading. So you show up and you're fit and you're healthy and you're hydrated and you're 180 pounds. And by the time you deploy to come back home, you're 140 pounds and you've got worms in your guts and you've, been in the hospital twice. And so you got to recover. So there's a very real preparation element that goes into before you let yourself degrade. So you're rote memorizing your details, and then you're also kind of boosting up as best you can your physiological resources. How do you, maintain sanity and mental health as you're going through this degradation process? How do you maintain physical health? How do you maintain enough vitamin C? How do you do whatever you're going to do so that you can maximize your efficiency on an operation? And some operations might only be 2 weeks. Some might be 6 months. So, how much and how quickly you degrade is oftentimes offset by how long the mission is.
Yeah. When you're going through that entire process and something gets really tough, right? How do you control like the nerves, like typically that fight or flight, mechanism that all of us have?
Yeah.
Is there like skills or things that they teach you, or maybe some things that you've learned along the way? Like how do you cope with that?
So I'm going to get a little bit sciencey.
Yeah.
Right?
I love it.
Okay, cool. If we leave anybody behind,
let's go.
They can rewind.
Yes.
So everything about your fight or flight response comes from the center of your brain called the amygdala. And the amygdala sits just south of the crossroads of your brain, where information is sent either through your left brain or your right brain. Your left brain is your logical brain. Your left hemisphere is your logical brain. Your right hemisphere is your creative, emotional brain. So when new information is presented, right, red can of liquid death, when that's presented to you, your sensory organs, your eyes, your nose, your ears, pick up this new information. It's just information. So it goes in through your sensory organs into a part of your brain that's basically a big traffic cop. And the traffic cop says, here's data. I'm going to give this data to the left brain and the right brain simultaneously. So when it's a can of red liquid death and it goes into your emotional brain, you might get excited. When it goes into your logical brain, you might think to yourself, well, it's flavored, right? It's a melon flavor. If you replace that liquid death with a car that's coming at you at high speed, or a gun that's pointed at your face, or any number of things, right? A rat that's on the floor. Now all of a sudden you have completely different reactions, right? Your emotional brain, your right brain, is going to react based on its own emotional response. Your logical brain is going to try to make sense of what's happening. Your amygdala sits in your emotional brain. So new information comes in. It's sent to your emotional brain. The first stop it hits is the amygdala. The amygdala asks itself, fight or flight, right?
Yeah.
So whenever it's flight, what ends up happening is whenever the amygdala is exposed to anything that spikes, either fight or flight, at a very high level, a high threshold, it's flooding the brain with chemicals. It's essentially a traumatic moment.
Yeah.
The amygdala is just like a circuit in your house wiring system. It can only handle so many spikes before the circuit breaks or burns out. That's what causes PTSD.
Yes.
So the way that CIA prevents us from having PTSD is they make it so that we slow down the response time. We essentially insulate our amygdala by increasing the speed at which our logical brain works. So now when I see a rat, the way that I prevent myself from getting spooked is I teach my logical brain to operate faster. So it says animal, rat, certain size, not mangy, no risk, right? And if I can make my left brain work as fast as my right brain, then essentially I'm sharing the resources that would otherwise flood my amygdala, and I'm splitting it in two different directions, which never spikes the amygdala.
Wow.
So I still have a fight or flight response, but it's not something that takes over. And you know what this is like, because if you've ever reacted to a surprise and had your heart race and your body sweats and all of a sudden like your field of vision narrows, that's a spike in your amygdala. If you've ever had a startle, that's also a spike, but it's a very small spike. They're both the same response, but one of them is dangerous because one of them could lead to a traumatic response. The other one is just normal. So the goal is to expose CIA officers, tier 1 operators, bleeding edge military. The goal is to expose them to as many experiences as possible that show them how to insulate their amygdala and increase the processing time in their logical brain.
Wow.
That training is absent for the average person.
Yes.
And one of the big reasons that my business is successful is because I can bring that training to the average person, and there's a lot of people out there who want that.
Absolutely. My gosh.
Freedom! So fresh on me. Freedom!